Hi there and welcome to another Midweek Memo. Your will be done, we say. Often we don't know what that means, it's God's secret will. Sometimes we know really what that means. We must love others, love God. But there's that bit in between, the fuzzy bit. What about God's will for our lives? What job we should take, the person we should marry, what we should do with our day? Well, many years ago, I came to London with my London A to Z. Now, like the rest of us, I'm on maps on my phone all the time. And I guess there's that question, does God have a map for our lives? Well, some people, whether or not they believe there is such a thing as a map for our lives, functionally believe even if it exists, they can't access it. And so, although they don't exclude the possibility of God speaking to them or directing them, ultimately, they get on and make their plans just using their own brain power. At the other end of the spectrum, there are those who believe God has a very intricate and detailed map of every step of their lives. And in fact, often they're rather terrified of getting off that way. And so they find themselves full of observations about different details. Oh, I saw 3 red lights on the way into work today. Perhaps that means that big question about whether I'm going to carry on with this job is a no, or is it? The wonderful thing is that it recognizes God is alive and at work in our plans. The trouble is, when exactly is he actually telling us to do what? Sometimes it feels like a great big game of cosmic cat and mouse with a divine crossword puzzle writer, whose crossword puzzles aren't that easy to get. Well, what's the Christian approach? The Apostle Paul confronted these kind of questions often, and it seems to me he had 3 different ways of addressing them. He believed in a revealing God, God who spoke into the circumstances of his life. In one occasion, a man appeared to him in a dream and said, "Come over to Macedonia to help us." But Paul was also a strategizer. He was happy to make plans, to think strategically, and conclude from what he knew about God what his plans should be. He wanted to head to Spain because there he could share the gospel. He knew they hadn't heard it yet in Spain. And finally, he was aware that circumstances ultimately could control his actions, whatever he wanted to do. He was often bundled out of a city when they were threatening to beat him up, and he moved on simply because he knew he had to stay alive. Well, what about you? What does it look like for you to say, "Your will be done"? Perhaps for you, you need a new confidence in asking God to reveal his will to you, to come and make himself known to you, to be humble enough to think he could direct you in your steps. On the other hand, perhaps it's time for you to recognize that God isn't promising you a great big neon sign at every turn. And in fact, perhaps you don't need to worry too much about whether you're going to get off the path. Rather like those auto-correcting maps, if you slightly lose your way, he is a gracious and kind God who gets you back to your destination in his own way and often redeems the mistakes you make along the way. And don't forget that right next to the Maps app on your phone, there's another one, the Bible. At least I hope it's there. And here's a lovely verse that reminds us that of all of those concerns, there are even greater ones still. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Just a few notices to share with you. First of all, this Sunday evening at 6:30 p.m, we have a service of consecration. We're asking all our volunteers, or as many as can make it, in all the many different dimensions of church life, to come and join us as we commit ourselves and our service to the Lord afresh for a new year. We hope it's going to be an encouraging and unifying occasion to do together. So do join us for that at 6:30 p.m. this Sunday. Looking quite a bit further ahead, on the 24th of March, we are going to have a baptism service. At least in the morning, possibly in the morning and the evening. And we'd love to know if there are others who would like to join in those baptism services and be baptized. So if you've been a Christian for a while, or you're settled that you want to become a Christian but you haven't yet got baptized, we'd love you to join us in those baptism services. There'll be preparation classes starting on the 25th of February. So please do get in touch about those. And finally, one last thing, a date for the diary, the 22nd and 23rd of June is a weekend home and away for us. We're going to be taking the Saturday out, going out to the countryside in Kent and getting together for some time together as a church family. So do put that in the diary and save the date. More information on that coming soon. Thanks for joining us.